Okay, so for the art element of form, I chose two books, of course. One is this one, House of Robots by James Patterson. And if any of you have a son that's around my child's age, almost 9, and I mean, James Patterson writes some really amazing adult stories too, but we have a lot of these books around our house. The House of Robots. It's by James Patterson and Chris Grabenstein. And this book I thought would fit into the forms category as, form, illusion of depth that an artist creates in illustration. So when given form, things become something completely different. It's no longer just that flat shape like a square. If we draw some extra lines on there and give it form, it becomes 2 or 3-dimensional. So this book, obviously it's a thick fiction book. It's a chapter book. It's not a picture book, but there are some pictures, some illustrations throughout, quite a bit actually. Almost every single page has one. But this book, along with the story, this book has the pictures on every page, and along with the shading, we know that highlights and shadows areas can also create form and depth. And this book has that on almost every single page. We see the football stadium where there's a middle line shaded in. Sometimes those shades can draw our eyes to specific objects. It can create, like I said, depth and form. So, and these characters are definitely popping off of the page. We know that color can help the form, make something stand out and create that illusion of depth. And that's what this is doing to me. It's making the characters in the drawing, it's depicting them getting smaller and smaller. So that's creating that depth. And like I said, on every single page, it's doing that. Every page there's some shading and some contouring and some highlighting, and it's making those characters jump out. So every single page. And then the other book I got for the element of form is A Cloak for the Dreamer. And this is by Eileen Friedman, and it's illustrated by Kim Howard. This is a really, really great book also. That light kind of shining on it. Just to give you a little bit of background on the story, it's a tailor and he has 3 sons. And the 2 oldest sons want to be tailors just like Papa, just like their father. The 3rd youngest son does not wish to be a tailor. He wants to travel the world. So while the 2 older boys are busy helping their father every day, wrap up the material and put it away and collecting pins off the floor, 3rd little brother is scouring over maps and dreaming about going to explore the world. So this book is about an archduke that comes along and asks the tailor to create 3 cloaks for himself and 3 dresses for his wife for their travels, their upcoming travels. And he cannot get all that done. So he does the 3 dresses and asks his sons to do a little bit of a cold, and asks his 3 sons to do the cloaks. So his 2 sons do a fantastic job. Let me get to the page where they kind of begin to create the cloaks, because this is where I feel like the form really comes into play. Ivan first studied the bolts of fabric. He had seen his father use them all at one time or another, so he cut a rectangle from each one. Then, using the pattern of bricks along the floor, Ivan carefully sewed the rectangles together and created a cloak. And they want these cloaks to also, protect the Archduke from the elements of weather, the wind, the rain. So it's pretty important that it doesn't have any space in between, open space in between. Meanwhile, Alex, the 2nd brother, had thought of the colors of the Archduke's carriage and the coat of arms painted on the side. So he brought down those specific colors of red, yellow, and purple fabrics. You can kind of see that red and yellow. And cut many squares from each bolt of fabric. He stitched the squares together to make one beautiful cloth. He worked very quickly and he had the cloak ready very, very fast. Well, then he started worrying more that it wasn't interesting enough for the Archduke, so he created a second one. So between the two brothers, you have 3 cloaks, which is what the tailor was commissioned for. So the third brother, Misha, was working too. He thought of going out into the world as he cut circles. He didn't really care what the Archduke wanted. He was thinking of his personal likes. He picked colors from the maps he loved. Blue for the deep oceans and winding rivers, green for the meadows of the countryside, yellow for the sands of the desert, and red for the routes between faraway places. So that's where our color depiction can also come in, because, you know, those calming colors for peace, and, you know, he's picking the greens for the meadows and such. So he sewed them together. After sewing the circles together, held them up and realized, whoa, there's a lot of space in between here. This isn't going to work. But he completed it on time and gave it to his father. Now here's where we see kind of the form come in, the different colors helping to create that form, help it pop off that page and create that illusion of depth right there. So we see these beautiful cloaks. Well, little brothers didn't measure up, so father took the other 3. And here again, we can see those colors helping to create those different patterns and illusions and form. So little brother, dad decided to let little brother fulfill his dream and go out into the world and do some exploring. But the father decided to give him a going away present. So he woke the brothers up. Let me get to this back page. It's very sweet. He woke the 2 brothers up, and all night long the tailor and his 2 oldest sons worked on Misha's cloak. They snipped the circles apart, and father trimmed them into hexagons. As his father cut, Alex quickly sewed the hexagons together to make one cloth of the dreamer's colors. When the cloth was finished, the 3 tailors fashioned it into a strong and beautiful cloak. They stitched the last stitch as the sun came up on the day Misha was to leave home. And then we see sweet Misha leaving with his coat of many colors. So I thought this was a great book to talk about form and the cloaks. And then in the back, it kind of talks, this is kind of for parents and teachers, and it kind of talks about the different mathematics that might come into play when you're putting cloaks like that together, the different shapes and how certain pieces together make an equilateral triangle, and those 3-dimensional shapes here. So it's kind of a great book.